Okay, thanks everyone for joining for our next Modicon user group. Today we're presenting cybersecurity on the factory floor or shop floor, and that could be defined as anywhere you have your automation and control equipment, your PLCs, your SCADA systems, and stuff like that. So yeah, so we're going to talk about that. As you know, cybersecurity is huge. It's huge in our personal lives, and it's huge in business, and you know, the huge focus nowadays on our automation equipment and making sure that they are secure. Joined with me today is Andrew Nix. He's leading our cybersecurity services group within Schneider Electric, and he'll talk a little bit more about what we do. We also have two great partners of ours. We have Clarity. Kevin and Wes will join us from Clarity and go through their offering. And then we also have David and Brian from Enigmedia, and they'll go through their cybersecurity offering. And both of these offerings are offered through Schneider Electric, and they're complementary to each other in different ways. So I'll let them go into their details of their products. We have a lot to do today, so I'm talking a little fast. I want to go through this, and I want to pass the ball off to Andrew to start us off. Real quick, as you know, all our previous meetings, we have a box, that folder that has all of our previous webinars on there, PowerPoints and the recording. So you can always come back and review it for reference. This is no different. What is different is that I will put the box link in the chat. That'll be good for this one. But we are migrating away from box in 2023. So look forward to a new link that'll have all the old presentations to it, but it'll be a new link. This one here will be decommissioned in 2023. So with that, Sheena had mentioned the Q&A box for all of your questions. That kind of keeps the questions and answers all together as opposed to a linear chat. The chat for any topics maybe you'd like to see, and then I'll post different links in there, such as the link for our box, and then also at the end we'll have a short survey that we'd like you to take. The survey is about how do we do today, and then if you'd like to know more about these two solutions. And for doing that, I have a little holiday gift for you. If you do those, this is our Modicon user mug. I've given these away in the past for those who have done some surveys, and so we have a couple more that we'd like to give away. Don't do the survey just yet. That would be cheating. So with that, let me go ahead and pass the ball over to Andrew, where he will talk about Schneider Electric and kick us off.
All right.
Here's Andrew.
Thank you very much, Lou. I appreciate it. And everybody, let me get my my little screen share started here so that we can get going. I appreciate everybody's attention and energy and excitement on this topic of cybersecurity. It is a little bit different than maybe some of the normal topics that we cover in the Modicon user group. We're taking a different twist on it because this has been so impactful, so important in the last few years and growing day by day, as we see almost every morning in the news now. I'm Andrew Nix. I'm physically here in Houston, Texas, but I represent Schneider's operational cybersecurity solutions and services team. We are a global team. We have strategic hubs and facilities across the globe for helping to design, architect, test, implement, and manage cybersecurity platforms and services and solutions for all of Schneider's customers, as well as ourselves. We are a cyber secure organization ourselves with 220 some odd manufacturing plants, and we do this for ourselves as well. So very excited to be a part of the conversation today, and just wanted to introduce a new side of cybersecurity that some folks may not associate with that word. And the reason I say that is because when we talk about cybersecurity, usually it gets stuck into product cybersecurity only. And that's very important, right? Schneider makes secure products by design. Everything that we sell comes secure and defendable with features built in to do so. However, it's also important to remember the security of the network that we're operating in, your network, your blood and veins and arteries that connect devices together and let them communicate and do business and work effectively, that make things work. That is an important cybersecurity component as well. And what's the analogy that I like to use is, when I go and if I buy a new phone, whether it's, your vendor of choice from your carrier of choice, when I take that phone out of the box, it has cybersecurity built into it, whether it's facial recognition, password, fingerprint, all that stuff. That's great product security. It's built into the product. It's there by design to make sure that you have a good baseline to work from. But when I take that phone and I put it on my Wi-Fi, put my email on it, I start downloading apps, I give it to my kids, Lord knows what is going to happen to it in that kind of custom environment. And that custom environment is representative of your network and the space that you do business in, your facility. And so our team and my team is here today exists rather, to help define the cybersecurity for the space between devices, making sure that they can communicate effectively, that you have visibility and control over what's going on, and that you have a safe production environment, safe operational environment, and helping to select the tools, the technologies, the features, the processes that achieve that for you and what you do specifically, so that you can focus on doing whatever it is that you do best. So I wanted to frame that out there because I think that's an important differentiator of what we're going to talk about today. But as Lou said, we've brought some specific things to you for areas of cybersecurity in the networking space, in the solution space, that we've seen quite a bit across the Modicon user install base, as well as other industries that we view as important as well. From an attacker standpoint, they may not really care if it's you or your neighbor or the guy across the street. They're just looking for a weak point that they can use to get in and cause pain. They may be in a network for weeks or months trying to learn how they can attack you. And so we want to keep them out. We want to give visibility to when things are happening that are strange so that we can prevent those types of problems. And we've seen a lot of specific questions come up around that in the industrial world in the last few years, and specifically in the last 12 months. We've had a problem statement that's almost universal for our customers. You may be experiencing this too, or some version of it. And so we wanted to bring that to you and solve that problem, or show you some ways that we solve that problem today. So the big problem statement that we're here to kind of talk about is around what's in my network, what's out there, what's it doing, and what's the health of everything that's there. How do I know when something strange is happening that would be outside of what's normal for my facility, for my operation? And really that comes down to the problem that in the operational world, or the OT, operational technology world, assets don't really get identified as well as they should. And traditional IT tools that we see in the front office space, or kind of the business or office area, don't necessarily do a great job of categorizing and getting the validated details on what those assets are. And to be honest, they can actually cause problems themselves, because if they pull a device that's not expecting it to do so in that way, in the operational world, it could cause an issue, because operational devices are a little less chatty than IT devices, or they do it in a different way. So this leads to a lot of risk, because if we don't know what's out there in our network in almost real time, we don't know what it's doing, then how are we defending ourselves against the latest vulnerability that we see in the news, against making sure that we have the latest firmware versions out there, knowing what's normal and what's not in our facilities. On top of that, not only just not having that visibility, but a lot of government regulators, or even your own customers may have SLA requirements on you for updating, for patches, for end-of-life equipment that's in your environment, being able to identify that. And we need the ability to visualize all of that so that we can mitigate the risk on our controls, and then have the ability to connect back into the network safely and securely from a administrative standpoint or an operator standpoint, to be able to update, control, make changes in that environment in a way that is controllable, that's defendable, that's safe for operations, and logged so that we can see and know exactly what's happening. So the resolution that we're going to talk about today really drives around how do we get a vendor agnostic asset inventory and map of our network and everything that's in it. And that's really important, right? Because we don't want to have 10 different cyber solutions for each different major vendor that's, that's in your environment. Nobody has just Schneider and everything that they do. It's all about, it's, mixed environments, mixed protocols, mixed age of equipment. We got to be able to see all of it in a single platform, or it's just adding complexity. We need to see the global risk, the threats that are posed to us. What's most relevant to you and your environment, not just general stuff, but what's the biggest threat to you in the way that you operate? And then be able to see the level of detail for those devices that are in your environment. So, to make incident response easier, to be able to, address rising costs from an insurance and finance standpoint by lowering your risk, and making sure that your risk contingency costs don't continue to rise because you have the ability to control the security and defendability of that facility. And of course, that's all just beyond the basics of, we don't want to get hacked, we don't want to get breached. So that's what we're really going to talk about today, with the two solutions that we have that we're going to present to you, Enigmedia, and then starting off with Clarity. The thing that I do want to say is, it's okay to be in a different spot on your pathway to cybersecurity assurance. This is the last thing I'll share before I hand it over to Kevin to kick us off from the Clarity standpoint. But we see that many different organizations are in different places of where they are comfortable in their cybersecurity posture, right? A lot of organizations are just at the beginning, starting to get awareness of what's out there, getting commitment that this needs to happen. And if you're there, it's okay. These are the kind of tools that you can use to leapfrog yourself into a further position without having to spend a lot of time validating and manual efforts of trying to check cybersecurity. We can really automate that pathway for you without having to have a huge investment in it. Then we want to get visibility into the network, start seeing what's there. Just like we talked about, you can't defend what you don't know, and that's really important. Then we can start addressing, seeing what the biggest risks are. What are the oh wow or the oh no moments that we can look into, qualify, quantify, and knock off the target through firefighting and addressing those specific blind spots. And that's where we can start integrating things together, making the technologies that you already have more effective without adding any extra cost to them, and then optimizing what you're using to make sure that cybersecurity is sustainable, is achievable in your environment without impacting your operation. So we, Schneider, and our cyber services team are here to help progress you down that pathway, make sure that you're doing the right things for you in your scope and what you need to achieve. But the two technologies that we're going to talk about today really do a great job of getting you far along that that pathway through phase 4 right off the bat, right, where we can address what's have awareness of what's out there, visibility to the details of your cyber threats and landscape, and then start making corrections and changes to that to make sure that you're at the top of your game. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing real quick, and I'm going to pass it over to, excuse me, as I get my screen back here. Let's see here. How can I've got my mini screen. Bear with me, folks. I'm going to cancel my sharing, and I'm going to assign it over to Kevin to take over from here. Kevin, are you ready to go?
I am ready.
Okay, bear with me. I'm moving the presentation down to you, and you are all set, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Andrew. So, hi, everybody. As Andrew mentioned, my name is Kevin Pistorius. I am on the Clarity side. I am a strategic partner manager, which means two things. I'm not a sales guy. And second, I own the relationship between Schneider and Clarity, which is why I was invited to do this today. I am going to run through two quick slides and tee up Wes Roberts, who is one of our engineers, who's going to give you a high-level demo of what our flagship product, CTD, or Continuous Threat Detection, does. I'm sure you are all experiencing a growth in connected devices, which brings new challenges. Andrew mentioned it before. You can't protect what you can't see. Another phrase that we throw around is, it's not a matter of if, it's when. Meaning the bad guys of the world are becoming more well-funded, better educated, more tenacious, and there are more of them. and it's just a matter of time, for them to come knocking on your door. They may already be in there. A lot of them come in very in stealth mode and try to take whatever they want, whether that's IP, shut things down, ransomware. I mean, you've seen the news. I'm sure you've seen the list of things that these bad guys are after and the different methods that they leverage to get into your network. That is why Clarity was created. We are not an IT tool trying to be something that can serve as OT cybersecurity. I think a fair label for us, other than cybersecurity, is visibility. I mean, at its core, security starts with visibility. Knowing what's on your network, like Andrew said, that is the foundation to most of the security regulations out there, most of the frameworks, and just gives you that that base level, that normalcy view of things going on in your network. We're purpose built for OT. We're not trying to be all things to all people. We stay in our swim lane. We do what we do, and we do it well. We do, however, integrate with IT tools, so we are relevant to the IT team. Giving you that visibility of the plant floor, but tying into some of the tools they've already invested money in. So, we can help bridge that gap, as you're on your cybersecurity journey, no matter where you are, to tie in with things that are relevant to that team that in most cases, that the IT team is tasked with securing your facilities. We can help everyone play nice in the sandbox together. My slide didn't change there. Okay. Again, before I hand it off to Wes, very briefly, this isn't necessarily a product pitch so much as, different options available for you to achieve that visibility, which gets you started on that cybersecurity journey. Some of the use cases we solve for, you can see up there at the top. I'm not going to read all those, but that big green line I'm going to hit on again. Everything starts with visibility and asset discovery. Not only are we showing you the asset itself, we're telling you very detailed things: make, model, serial number, firmware version, end of support, things like that, as well as communication, visibility to the communication between devices, which is very important. If you see, for those of you familiar with the Purdue model, if you see something on level 0, level 1 connecting with an HMI, that probably shouldn't happen. Since we have visibility to all things on your network, we can see that. We know that's anomalous, and you can write policy to take action through one of our integrations or various methods. Again, I mentioned CTD. That's our flagship product, continuous threat detection. It gives you all that visibility as well as threat monitoring. We have another product that's a lot lighter, less, lower touch, that just gives you a snapshot in time of all the connected devices on your network. So you have that asset inventory. Folks use it if they want to, if they're purchasing another company, to see what you're buying before you buy it, to get your risk score, hygiene score, and a path to remediate all of the things that, are leaving you open to an attack. We also have a secure remote access tool. It's just called Secure Remote Access, or SRA, which gives folks the ability to either log on from their couch, if you will, to do their jobs, or log on to remote facilities to reduce the amount of windshield time and make those people that you are paying to do their job more efficient and more effective, because it's more time hands-on in your facilities. And then the last use case for SRA, or one of the last use cases for SRA, is you can identify specific IP addresses and specific times where third-party vendors can come in to do work they have to do. For example, you can record those sessions, so you can see every click they made, every move of the mouse, to see what they did. So if something does happen as a result of that, that session, you can pinpoint what went wrong and remedy it. You can also, shoulder surf, if you will, where you are seeing live, real time, exactly what they're doing. The last thing we offer is a SaaS-based solution that gives you that visibility and threat identification for those of you who, are maybe a little more mature, have adopted cloud, things like that. But that's pretty much what I wanted to cover in a nutshell. Again, I think the meat of the Clarity portion here is really getting eyes on our tool, and Wes can run you through that right now. But if there are any questions, I think Lou just posted a little while ago, please submit them in Q&A and we will address those. He also mentioned there is that survey, and Andrew Nix's CBC team is our right hand. All of the Clarity opportunities will be coming through Andrew Nix and his team. So you have your sales rep, whoever sold you Modicon, whoever else at Schneider. You have Andrew Nix and his team, and we are all here to support you as a team, on your cybersecurity journey. All right, so Wes, if you are ready, I'm going to hand this over to you.
Sounds good, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Maybe I need to stop sharing. I'm sorry. Okay, it looks like I was able to move the ball, Wes, so I think that you can hit start. I think you can hit share and dive in.
Outstanding. Thank you. Sorry, team. Minor laptop issue.
Are you able to see the share button? Okay. Oh, for some reason I'm the presenter. Wes, are you there? All right, we lost Wes. Andrew, are you ready to go? All right, sorry everyone if we're having a little technical difficulties here. Just giving them a minute. Wes, are you back?
I am. My goodness, apologies, everyone. The mercy of Hyatt Hotels Incorporated today. I apologize. Let's get the share going and get into.
I can see it.
Okay, great. Again, apologies, everyone. Let's talk about briefly before I dive over into the graphical user interface for CTD and show some examples of the capabilities of the technology and some use cases. To spend a few brief moments talking about the topology of the solution and just, provide for everybody a little more insight into how we do what we do and how we derive all the very useful and actionable information. So on the screen here, I'm showing just a very simple example of a process control network topology, showing where devices would reside on the different levels of the Purdue model. We are big believers in the Purdue model and the communication schema between our components involved in our solutions also prescribe to the communication recommendations of the Purdue model. As Kevin mentioned earlier, there's two product suites that make up the overall Clarity platform, the Clarity Continuous Threat Detection solution, as well as the Clarity Secure Remote Access solution. Just also showing the unique topology of the components of the SRA solution on screen. We were not planning to get into a deep dive demo or lots of details around the use cases of SRA today. Kevin really touched on some of the key differentiators there with the your ability to require advance approval to certain assets, to have all sessions be clientless from our users and have them recorded, and then also the ability to, as administrators of the tool, to have a live view into those sessions and optionally terminate them if deemed necessary. But for today, we're going to focus more on giving you more insight into the continuous threat detection solution, represented with these components over here in the left of the drawing. The one required component for each of your process control networks or OT network facilities, if you will, is a Clarity CTD server. That CTD server also functions as a CTD sensor. So we do, illustrate an optional CTD sensor on the drawing here. And the use case is determining, ourselves and supporting Schneider and helping customers determine the appropriate places necessary for us to safely and passively monitor the Ethernet traffic in the environment communicating between these different devices so that we can provide information and actionable context. I show in the drawing here at least two interfaces going into the networking environment, one for the management for the CTD server, one or more additional ones to use for capturing that very valuable Ethernet packet information. one or more CTD sensors being optional. Of course, those are entirely managed from the CTD server. And while here at Clarity and definitely through Schneider Electric as well, we have some customers that have one facility and therefore, access to the CTD server is all that's required. For others, including Schneider Electric themselves as an organization, has, literally hundreds of sites around the globe, each with a CTD server. So it's certainly not expected for those to be utilized and managed individually. Multiple CTD servers can be connected securely up to what we call the Clarity Enterprise Management Console for more of that single pane of glass type experience from a usability and manageability of the solution. So I've talked a lot about the passive Ethernet traffic monitoring capabilities, which is absolutely the primary way that we derive information in most customer networks. However, as been mentioned a couple of times now, a key goal for ours is as close to 100% asset inventory as possible, and not just IPs and MAC addresses, but who made it, what model is it, what firmware is it running, and then optionally even what is its serial number. And so in an effort to get as close to 100% as possible, we do utilize some safe active query capabilities. We purposely do not use the word scanning because at a technical perspective, we are not scanning the network trying to determine which devices are listening for which types of protocols. We take a much more measured approach in these critical OT specific environments. And that is determining via a variety of methods, often inclusive of the MAC address for a device. The first half of a MAC address gives us insight into who the vendor of the device is. So therefore, for many products from Schneider Electric, we've not seen the traffic for it passively, yet with our safe active query capability, we determine that it's a Schneider Electric product based on its MAC address and only use Schneider-specific language across the network to inquire upon those additional details I mentioned a few moments ago. So we can perform this safe active query capabilities from the interface of a CTD server, but what has been incredibly popular over these last 12 months since the introduction of our Clarity Edge solution, which is a standalone lightweight application that can be run on any Windows-based system already in the environment or optionally on a laptop that we're moving around just safely and temporarily to utilize the network connectivity in the example here of this particular HMI to run this Clarity Edge executable on the desktop of that system and have Edge utilize its network connectivity. And then the Edge application will perform those very same safe active query type of techniques that we've known how to do for nearly 10 years now from a CTD server. So, the unique capability with almost, zero footprint of installation required to be able to, utilize this technology to get an accurate and detailed inventory of the entire environment in a matter of hours or perhaps just a day or two, as opposed to weeks or months that may be required to, perform a more significant installation for asset inventory management. And please, questions around this, post them in the chat as I click over to the GUI to talk through some use cases there before we hand it off to the Enigma Media team. I'll just point out that these 7 bullets that you see over here on the right, these are the core competencies of Clarity specifically for OT networks or process control environments, if you will. With that, let me get logged into. This is a CTD server running in one of the Clarity Demo Center environments. When I first log in as a user solution, I'm presented with the default dashboard, entirely customizable. Users can create different unique dashboards of built-in widgets or views, if you will, can also create custom widgets and views and add those to their own dashboard or optionally share those dashboards with other users. And these dashboards are really, taking select bits of information from moving our attention over here to the menu structure on the left, the menu structure also, being laid out to represent what is really three of the major competencies of the solution, which by design closely match up to the major functional pillars of all the cybersecurity standards out there today, including, of course, IEC 62443. And that is visibility. Can't state it enough times, right? The old saying in security, you can't protect what you can't see. And then threat prevention, identifying risk and vulnerabilities in the environment, not only based on known vulnerability issues with the software running on different devices, but extraneous connections that they may have, unusual activities, really, utilizing the Clarity advanced knowledge around what good and bad communication looks like in these environments from different devices is an important aspect as well. We'll look at a couple of details from each of the sections briefly. And then, of course, threat detection, utilizing thousands of signatures in the product, bit patterns, if you will, that we can match up to information as we passively watch all the Ethernet traffic moving around between devices in the environment. Each of these sections has its own dashboard. I'll go to the visibility overview dashboard here. And again, as you would expect with a dashboard, starting out really high level information and, getting a little deeper as we move down. Of course, identifying all the assets and then, at this broadest category level amongst those assets, which of them are OT related, IT related, or IoT related. Just because a platform is running the Windows operating system doesn't necessarily mean it's an IT device, depending on what software it has and what function it's performing. It could absolutely be an OT device, and we have a lot of examples of that in the demo center. Automatically determining what's internal and external to the network, communication going to devices that never respond, often a misconfiguration issue, but sometimes, and attackers taking advantage of different things that they've discovered, and so on and so forth. Just getting into more details as you would expect. We keep a close eye. If DNS is even available in the environment, then we're certainly tracking all of that information. The DNS protocol is unfortunately very heavily exploited by attackers in their motions. So there's a lot of value we can glean from keeping a close eye on that. Just kind of at a high level of, of the different places where we're instrumented in the network. What is the volume of traffic that we're seeing? What are the protocols? There's a lot of network-based protocols that are used in OT that are specific to that environment. So one of the, strong points here at Clarity is having a very deep understanding of those OT-specific protocols, part of our analysis, of course. And then also, specific to PLCs and the criticality of PLCs, Modicon and others, is actually tracking code segments and process values as we see them communicated across the network. So we can look for and alert on anomalies and issues there. I'll show us all a great example here in just a moment. Details about the assets, of course. In a tabular listing here that I can very easily search by a variety of different parameters here. Just for example, very quickly hone in on just the Schneider Electric components here in the demo environment. Not a very large demo environment with 131 assets, but absolutely, devices here from a number of different manufacturers. Automatically, the solution is determining the risk level of devices. We'll talk a little bit more about risk scoring, how we do it, and the importance there. Pretty much automatically determining everything that you see on the screen now. A common question is the amount of setup involved and so forth, which Schneider Electric is excellent at all those activities. Very broad and diverse skill sets there to help out. So certainly some some tuning that is helpful initially, but it's astonishing to a lot of people to understand how much of this is actually done out of the box without advanced configurations. So let's take a look at some of the details here for this particular product, whose host name is M221. No surprise that it is a part of the Modicon M221 family. So whenever I access the information in CTD for any individual device, I have multiple tabs of communication across tabs of information across the top here around that specific device. An overview tab with bits and pieces from the others, of course. But let's go right over to device information, where can illustrate here, when did we first see it on the network, last seen, what are the protocols that we see this device using on the network, and of course, what is the model, what is the firmware, useful information in helping us compute an overall risk score for this device. Now, I am kind of temporarily dipping into the risk and vulnerabilities area here as part of our discussion, but specifically, what we're doing specifically for this device applies to all devices and then is rolled up into an enterprise site-based and then enterprise risk scores that we can use via time-based reporting to demonstrate improvements to the environment over time. Very important to be able to illustrate that in a relatively easy to digest and non-technical manner, that improvements in the cybersecurity posture of the overall OT environments are being performed. So multiple components used to comprise the risk score. It's not just about the software vulnerability. That is an important component, of course, but criticality, PLCs are of maximum criticality in our opinion. So that's 20 points of the 100 points that would make a maximum risk environment right there. PLCs should not be really receiving communications from lots of other different devices in the environment. So that's a point of concern, right? If there are lots of other devices successfully or attempting to communicate to the PLC, that's also part of the risk scoring. Now, there are opportunities later in the product where you can approve some of this additional accessibility, because that is, part of the operational workflow in your environment. And in turn, because you have told the solution that this additional accessibility is okay, then it will approve the risk score for this device and, of course, improve the risk scores all along. It's important as a cybersecurity solution to not only point out active issues and potential issues, but also give you as much context around why we provided a risk score of 66, or what the recommendations are, for customers to do to help improve or reduce, I should say, the cybersecurity risk of this particular product in the environment. Full match CVEs, meaning that these known software vulnerabilities are specifically matched to this product as it sits in this network running this version of firmware. It's much more actionable and measurable and able to be accurately matched to a risk score, as opposed to just saying, hey, here's a whole lot of vulnerability for Schneider Modicon PLCs, but that's not nearly as precise and specific as what we're after here. Variety of things that contribute to the risk score. Take a broader look at some of those here in just a moment, but specifically to this particular device, the use of the net managed protocol. We're just pointing out that is not a secure protocol as long as it's used in a contained environment with the appropriate additional security controls around it. Then that may be deemed to be okay, and this particular insight can be acknowledged and not further considered as part of the risk score for this device. The ability to show the communication between different devices in the network is an important feature of the solution. Of course, we colorize devices based on what type they are. Then we use individual icons based on, I should say, what category they are, and then more specific icons based on what type of device they actually are. And while customers enjoy and appreciate this view, we find that a different representation of the same information can be even more illustrating to the way that communication is flowing in our environment. So here, still a diagram showing communication between different devices, the huge difference being, as I'm sure you noticed, as we now organize devices as to where they would reside on the different levels of the Purdue model. So I can get a better graphical representation of especially of my more critical assets in the lower levels of the Purdue model, what they are communicating with from a graphical perspective. All types of alerting that we can do based on those extraneous communications as well, of course, but just the ability to come here and filter on different items and from here pivot into details and what have you. And then, of course, utilize this information as an illustration to share with others that may have a misconception about how things are communicating in the environment. It happens all the time. We take guesses about what has to talk to what to make a certain function work. And sometimes we learn with this level of detail that our assumption all these years was incorrect, that the communication flow works a little differently than we presumed. And it's important to understand exactly how it works. All right, just keeping an eye on the time here for everybody. I did want to just show a little more examples of these other major functional pillars of the solution. The threat prevention capability identified as risk and vulnerabilities in the menu structure here. As we identify risk and vulns, we call those insights in the solution. This is part of that oh wow moment that Andrew referred to earlier. And this can provide a lot of information, a lot of detailed information, and a lot of recommendations, right? And it certainly can be overwhelming. And so we want to help out as best as we can with that. And one of the things we do is, based on our deep decade-long knowledge around communications and security aspects, specifically in these environments, is helping prioritize what we think are the insights that should be looked into and potentially addressed sooner rather than later. So you'll notice these first few insights here have a red icon next to them, then orange or yellow, I should say, and then we get into some grays, but just a couple of examples here. Of course, devices inside the facility communicating with things outside the facility on the internet, perhaps. Again, some of this may be this in the demo system, there's been zero tuning done to this environment on purpose. So in a production environment, we may come in and say, oh yeah, no, it's okay for these two devices to talk to that IP. So we can exonerate those, and that will improve remove them from insights and improve the risk score. But some key ones to point out here are the identification of devices that are end of life. Important capability that we're doing here. Number of different manufacturers, Schneider Electric included, of course, where we, regularly communicate with and receive information around not only, software vulnerabilities and what have you, but end of life information as well. So we can help customers keep a handle or have an understanding of in the first place, and then, keep a handle on that. Hey, USB devices connected to things, OT specific applications that may have software vulnerabilities, like some of the, SCADA control applications and what have you. Also identifying those and pointing those out here as part of insights. And then just a quick example here from the threat detection capability. We have the knowledge to continually analyze threat alerts as they come into as they're derived by the solution here, and look for opportunities to combine different alerts that look disjointed and disparate at an initial view, but are actually part of the same scenario or incident or story, if you will. As looking in the upper right-hand corner here, we refer to those as stories here at Clarity. So we've got a really simple example here in the online demo system. I've seen, in customer environments where it may be 30 or more alerts that are all intelligently combined by CTD into one common incident or story, such that anyone investigating or learning more about this alert, first of all, as part of the alert, gets context in plain English. Again, trying to do a good job of not only pointing things out, but why we did, and recommendations around how to address those. But here, a great example of this can take cybersecurity engineers hours to sift through all those alerts and determine that this is what actually happened in this environment. Someone came in remotely, did a host scan, found an RDP server, connected to it. From that RDP server, logged into a PLC and actually did some things there. And so, that, generated all those alerts that, CTD quickly combined into the story that we're able to come in and view, mitigation recommendations, more details around the systems involved. But then of keen interest here is the fact that we are watching code segments and process values to and from PLC. So we see that this potential attacker did touch some different code segments. They did make one change for this drain stage 1. They changed the stepper 2 value from 200 all the way down to 1. We could have some specific alerting around these values as another option. But here in this example, we saw the reasons above why we alerted upon this. If they were coming in through our secure remote access solution to get into the environment, we would have an indication of that right here, where I can either view their session live if they're still connected, or a single click disconnect that remote session for that user. And then finally, reporting is important. We have a variety of built-in reporting. You can do customized reporting as well. The all-encompassing risk assessment report in the upper right here is so popular that we made an easy button for it for anybody that has access to reporting in the solution to come in and be able to run the all-encompassing risk assessment report, view it, take sections from it, output it as a PDF, schedule it to go out via email, all those types of capabilities. So with that, thank you in advance, everyone. Look forward to circling back to the questions. And with that,
Hey Wes, there's a couple of questions that are in the Q&A. I figured I'd maybe ask.
Sure, let's do it, Lewis. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So one question: would Edge be the same as a CDT server, or is it the light version?
Not only a lighter version, in that it does not, in CTD, we have dozens and dozens of different capabilities, some around vendors that are, not even really in the marketplace anymore per se. So there are more, to be technically accurate with everyone, there are more of those capabilities in CTD, but we have taken and continue on a monthly basis as we come out new versions of Edge to take the more popular ones and incorporate those into Edge. With CTD, when you perform a safe active query, I'm not sure, this system has it. So here where you actually set up, a safe active query scenario for certain manufacturers, and CTD goes out and looks for those vendors, and when it finds them, performs the vendor native queries to get the details that we're looking for. CTD can go across router hops, across layer 2 domains into other network segments. The way that we've designed Edge to work, and so CTD requires a little bit of knowledge, right? We got to tell CTD a few things, and then it goes out and does its job, and it can reach across networks, can reach across the WAN, all that sort of good stuff. Under the hood, Edge is different. Edge is designed to, specifically use the networking of the station upon which it is being run. Edge is relying on the MAC addresses. CTD safe queries do not rely on the MAC addresses. Therefore, Edge only gathers information around devices that are on the same network, the same layer 2 segment, if you will, as this HMI in my example here. And then also, if this HMI is connected into a couple different networks with multiple network interfaces, then Edge will perform the queries out those, but it will not hop VLANs, if you will, into other VLANs. Therefore, in my little diagram here, if there's 4 different VLANs, then I'll need to run Edge 4 times, one on each VLAN, or run it on a host that's already connected into multiple VLANs, and that would reduce the number of times I run Edge. But the actual execution process for Edge is very easy, very straightforward, and I've never seen it take longer than about 5 minutes.
Awesome. Thanks, Wes. There's one other question out there. Is there a demo system that we can connect and browse around ourselves?
Lou, I can help address that. From a demo system, we do have demo systems available. Typically, we do kind of a hand-holding exercise so that we can guide you through it, let you, get experience with the tool, ask questions in real time, and we have an engineer walk through that with you. If it's using our demo system that Schneider hosts, right? If you are interested in trying it out in your facility, seeing what it picks up, seeing what you can learn, we also have a proof of concept model that we can deploy just to take a look at how this would be deployed, what it would look like, and give you real data in your own environment as to what this does. And we do that very often. So both of those are perfectly fine depending on the scope that you're looking at.
Thanks, Andrew.
So there's no other questions in the Q&A right now, but I will say is that interesting tool, right? When we talk about cybersecurity, the cybersecurity doesn't really care about what the products are down underneath it, right? And so these tools that we talk about today are agnostic. Our services that our services team and Andrew's team can perform are agnostic. As you see that in Wes's tool, he can discover Siemens stuff, he can discover Rockwell stuff as much as he can discover Modicon stuff. Really, really neat stuff to protect your system, especially if you have a smattering of different hardware that's out there. So with that, let me let's go ahead and pass it off to David and Brian. Oh, I came back.
Thank you, Lou.
All right, let me pass you, Brian.
If someone can pass me the ball, please.
There you go. Oh, I just passed it to Brian.
I see it. Give me 1 second.
Gotcha.
Perfect. All right, David, you want to kick it off?
Hi, everybody. My name is David Hatchell. I'm the CEO of a company called Ignig Media. We're a company based out of Spain, and we're rebranding and relaunching in the US. Our new name is going to be Obscura. So if we can go to the next slide. So what we're going to talk to you about today, I'm actually taking a slide from my good friends here at Clarity to kind of reinforce also some of the points that Andrew was talking with you about, of just like the journey that is we kind of take in the industrial cybersecurity world. This is something I've been kind of on for 12 years, various companies, various capacities. I'm excited to lead up this new company in our journey that we're taking in the industrial cybersecurity space. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the journeys we see it today. And obviously, Clarity and Andrew covered very well kind of this core concept of understanding your network, getting visibility, shining a light on the traditionally dark part of your network that we haven't had visibility in, a key portion of the journey. And so this slide kind of talks about the journey from this being one of the foundational elements. This is kind of mapped to the NIST cybersecurity framework that we talk about a lot here in the US. I'm going to talk about IEC 62443 here in just a little bit in terms of what we do from an automation perspective and the zones and conduits and how we kind of measure those. But generally going through this journey here, the visibility portion to understand how we kind of detect threats, how we respond to those. What we're going to talk to you a little bit today is about protection. And so obviously the access control in between your IT and your OT networks, managing things through secure remote access, as Wes talked about, is a very important portion of that. One of the things that we typically see in this is your customers are going through this journey. It's also necessary to do protection in a different way. Because this journey is so complex, as Andrew was saying, right, that only 10% of the people are to some form of optimized state, what we need to do as an industry is find a way to kind of reduce this attack surface. How can we remove this so it'll give you an ability to take take the journey faster. We're moving some of your segments offline so they don't have to be, inspected, while you have an ability to determine how you want to control those. That's what we're going to talk to a little bit about today. Next slide. Okay, so to kind of give you a bottom line up front on this. So what we do, we're a partner of Schneider Electric. We have a partnership and integration with Clarity. And so what we do fundamentally is we help you on this visibility journey. We kind of enrich the Clarity visibility with the deeper level OT network data. Obviously, as we get down into the level 2 networks, deploying something like Edge is really good. A lot of times we don't have the switch level access to get a span port to deploy a typical network solution. So what we'll do is we'll kind of deploy us as kind of virtual span port to feed Clarity. So a very important part. We actually do this. We deploy on a Harmony Edge gateway, which essentially Schneider sells. They just simply load our ciphers on, use and deploy these. The very important thing is, in order for us to operate at this level, we went through an extensive certification, to make sure that we didn't impact availability. If we want to remove this attack surface and operate in front of a Modicon PLC, we want to make sure we don't interfere with that traffic. We test all that extensively. We published a 42-page white paper together with Schneider to do this. And so from our perspectives, cybersecurity at this deep OT level is a major need. We've seen a lot of the threat landscape change in terms of the attackers building sophistication to start understanding how these different HMIs interact with the PLCs and how they might be able to attack these. And how they might be able to go is this latest pipe dream attack, how they can kind of proxy in between PLC to PLC with this kind of east-west traffic. And so it's very important that we think through this as a protective control. It's one of the key things about what we do. Time to value in under 2 hours. This is a very simple device to deploy. This is a layer 2 product. We can deploy it in 2 hours and have protection in less than 24 hours. So those of us going through the cybersecurity journey and trying to have a low maturity model and saying, hey, we can do something very quickly to make a very substantial surface in attack reduction. So next slide. So who we are as a company, as I mentioned, obviously, Clarity, you probably know extensively. Clarity's been in business, for the past 6-7 years. As I mentioned, we're a Spanish company today, rebranding in the U.S. We worked extensively with Schneider, as we mentioned. We've got key customers in major verticals, Iberdrola, the largest utility, Renfe, the largest train station in Spain. We're expanding our operations here in the U.S. We'll be relaunching, the product in February with a full A round of venture capital. We've got a broad-based team of people, both in development and also, Brian, myself, a chief product officer from the industry. So we all have a deep background in ICS. And so this is what we do. I'd now like to get in the next slide and talk about, from a technology problem and stack of what we solve. So the way we kind of view the world, we kind of protect industrial networks, by kind of isolating, cloaking, and authenticating sensitive assets and data deep in the OT network. So there's a protection part of what we do. As I said, it's about kind of reducing this attack surface. We also connect this data back into things like Clarity, into things like your SIM, and so into whatever tools you're kind of using. So we kind of reduce this attack surface. We cloak the data so that the attackers can't see into this. We actually do this at layer 2, meaning they can't even see the source and destination IP, from IT going into OT. So we make this attack surface invisible. And so we do 3 things. As I said, we kind of enhance the visibility by providing deep level data to threat monitoring tools as Clarity. We can do other things like put the Clarity Edge products behind our ciphers and behind our devices. So we're able to kind of perform the Clarity scans kind of behind our devices. The other important thing is segmentation. So we'll go create those zones and conduits in between the process networks so that we can control access between those. We have multiple ciphers. We can load those in the Harmony Edge boxes I mentioned. We have an orchestrator that can then kind of streams all that data back up to Clarity, but also manages the segmentation between those networks. And as I said, it's all about reducing this deep level OT attack surface to buy us time to look at other preventative measures across our networks. So with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to Brian for a little more detail from a technical perspective.
Awesome. Thank you, David. So I'd like to talk a little bit about standards and IEC 62443. After this presentation, if you're not familiar, I highly recommend you contact Andrew and his team to talk a little bit more about some of the standards that Schneider recommends, NIST or IEC. And let's start out with IEC in particular. So there's two concepts from IEC that are very important to OT. One of them is called a zone, the other one is called a conduit. And so this is a generic network map that I'm going to step you through. So zone is an isolated segment of your network for devices for sharing information. So you look at the red zone or engineering workstation zone, the green zone, so the bottom left and then two over from it. That's a zone itself. So it's two segmented pieces of the network, but the zone is a group of networked devices that are able and allowed to be communicating to each other. The conduit is a connection between two zones. So good example would be the solid red line. So you're allowing the blue zone to talk to the red zone, that one in particular. And then we use something, our own name called a flow. And the flow is a defined stream of packets. So you could see that as the dashed blue line where the engineering workstation is talking to the bottom left green zone. And it could be characterized by things like a protocol, source and destination, as well as direction. And so in order to do this type of architecture, you have to understand what's on your network and how the data is flowing through that network. So here's an example showing our product combined with the Clarity product. So NX Media delivers defense in depth. And back to the 3 points that we work to deliver via Connect and Protect, we first of all allow you, and you can see where our devices are placed. They're placed at the edge of the zones. And then we have our orchestrator, which is in the top left, that connects up via virtual span port to deliver network data to your visibility tool. So again, that's like a Clarity or a IT-based SIM. And the unique part about what we do is because the traffic flows through our cipher for that zone, we are able to collect network data flowing through that zone that would otherwise not be available. So a common issue in the OT environments are the switches do not support span. And so if they don't support span, you can only capture data that's passively available to that device connected to that switch. Whereas a span port would take all traffic connected and being sent through that switch and send it through the span port. So we're able to act as a virtual span port for every network zone that we sit on, so through that edge. So we take that packet data, that data stream, to improve visibility and send it to your visibility tool. Then we create the zones. And so the zones are like in this example, that's the engineering workstation. And then you can start to specify what zones are able to talk to what other zones. So you could say that the engineering workstation zone is able to talk to the green zone on the left and the blue zone on the bottom right. And they're very simple interfaces that we use. These are not tools where you need a PhD in Cisco iOS. They're tools built for OT. You literally go through an interface and collect the boxes to designate what zones talk to what. So now you've got your zones set up. And the next piece that you could do to continue to harden the network is to allow the protocols to be specified communicating for which zone. So Clarity talked about, an attack that they saw in the network. If you're able to understand the minimum protocols required to communicate within your plant, you specify those and say that engineering workstations should only be able to talk to the PLCs with a particular protocol set. And once somebody tries to use a non-approved protocol, it just gets dropped into that zone border. Or if you need to do FTP updates into a PLC to deliver new firmware, we've got the ability to, on an as-needed basis, allow that protocol to be used, or an administrator allows that user to go into our orchestrator web portal. The end user or OT user just has the ability to turn that on and off, whereas the administrator chooses what protocols are available in what zones. So this is a little bit more about how our product works. It's a network diagram. So, IT maybe in your environments has already set up some type of networking. That's great. And we love to work with IT in these solutions. Our solutions sit on top of the IT network. So we use encryption to sit on top of an existing network to provide that value and that networking. And a good example is Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi networks that everyone uses are shared mediums, and you use encryption to segment shared mediums of 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz to create your own networks. So back to the two major value props, it's connect and protect. The connection is the virtual span port and the ability to notify on a major event. And we categorize those as three major things that we could dump into a SIM or to a syslog. One, a new device being plugged in, a port scan that's occurring on a network, and a DDoS attack occurring inside the OT network segment. So we're not dumping tons of data like a raw SIM, but just highly valuable events that occur that OT should probably know about. And then we talked about how we deliver the segmentation through the encryption. And because the data is encrypted, we're essentially encrypting Ethernet. Our system is simple that we handle the encryption, how the encryption gets laid out. The end user, you guys don't have to deal with any of that. But we create those encrypted tunnels. And because the data is encrypted, threat actors can't see it. They can't Wireshark it. And because they can't talk to the devices, they can't perform reconnaissance, they can't attack them. And so even if you've got a vulnerable device like Windows XP or Windows Vista or a PLC that needs to have that firmware updated, you can do those more now around scheduled activities. Or if it's a forever day vulnerability, meaning a vulnerability that's never going to get patched, Windows XP, Windows Vista, PLC that's no longer supported, you can protect that with our system and only allow specific traffic to it based on your business need. So why are we different? We've got very fast connectivity to the devices. So, normally encryption has a lot of overhead. We had less than a millisecond of latency to the communication. So even for a very protocol, latency sensitive protocols like Goose, we do not affect that. We're right now one of the only, I think we are the only solution that is capable of encrypting Goose while not affecting usability. Another one is where we sit. We're a layer 2. So because we sit so low in the network, again, we're essentially encrypting the Ethernet. The devices don't need to understand encryption. The plant operators don't have to deal with the encryption. Our devices handle all that. We talked a little bit about legacy protection for legacy PLCs, as well as legacy Windows devices or anything that has gone end of life. The easy to use, it's one of the fastest time to value products that I've ever seen. You can plug it in, put it at the edge without doing any of the encryption or the cloaking or the segmentation, just for visibility alone, and it'll start feeding data to your visibility tool that day. And lastly, we're vendor agnostic. It doesn't matter what's in the network, how many different PLC vendors you have, what devices are there. It works with all of it, including your SIM and other SOC tools. So questions that you might be hearing throughout your company that indicate it would be a good conversation forward to contact Andrew would be things like, how are you securely getting your data out of level 2 to comply with regulations? Or, are you considering using Clarity? or a similar threat management or monitoring tool. How are you getting complete data out of your level 2 environment and live data feeds to properly feed that? Visibility tools work on two pieces. They work on, visibility is two parts. It's the tool, like Clarity, and then it's the data feed or the fuel, which is the network data. And if your systems don't support span and you're not able to collect that real-time data, you're missing a critical part. Or on the protection side, what happens if a threat actor breaches layer 3 or layer 4? If they continue to get into your network, how are you stopping them from from horizontal movement within level 2 or layer 2? That was actually one of the things at S4 that Jen Easterly said is, that's probably the biggest problem that OT has right now. How do you stop a threat actor from moving laterally within layer 2? And then on the IT side of things, they're asking questions, or good questions they could be asking are you getting full visibility from your tools now? Or how can I safely gain connectivity between OT level 2 devices? Or do both IT and OT teams agree that connectivity is safe? We get good feedback from our clients' IT and OT teams because we allow the IT teams to set up their networks as they would like, and this layers on top of the IT networks so that OT can perform additional segmentation to make sure that the plants continue to stay up and running. Or are you fully exploiting the latest low latency encryption protocols to secure your data? Or do we have enough separation between OT and IT? David, if you'd like to talk about this.
Certainly. Thank you, Brian. So as I mentioned, here's our contact information. Obviously, anything can be run through Andrew and his team from Schneider. We have several other resources online on the Schneider Exchange site. A really good kind of white paper that we've kind of put together in conjunction with Schneider, about 42 pages on various architectures in which we deploy, from water to building automation, process automation, et cetera. So lots of really good technical deployment diagrams in there. Kind of put together a white paper on kind of protecting PLCs in terms of the importance for that. We did an attack simulation demo in the Schneider Andover lab, which we have available to send you as well. So as I said, thanks everybody for the time. Thanks from our Schneider and Clarity team here for the great collaboration, and we look forward to working with you all.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew and Lois for having us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys. If you can pass me back the ball, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Everybody, just a couple of things that I have. If you take a look at the chat, there's a bunch of stuff actually in the chat. One is the survey, and I'm going to put this up on the screen right now. So you should see my survey, the survey that's up here. That survey does a couple of things. One, it can get you a mug. We'll call it a Happy Holidays mug. It's from the Modicon user group mug. Will sit on your desk. What we'd like to know is, first of all, how did we do today? That would be great. And then also, if you're interested in knowing more about these solutions, you can check a checkbox of which solution you're looking for, and then we'll contact you and talk about our solutions. So again, agnostic solutions. It doesn't make a difference what products you have out in the field. This is all about cybersecurity. And then a lot of people don't think about Schneider Electric and cybersecurity services, but this is what we do. We have a whole team around cybersecurity focusing only on industrial automation facilities. So anyway, please give us a try here. So this thing disappeared from me. Okay, are there any other questions in the chat here in the Q&A? Give me 1 second. So I think that's it. So with that, we'll conclude. I'll leave that QR up there. But that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you very much for joining. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Andrew Nix. That's Louis Arone at SchneiderElectric.com. You should have all received the invite from me. So thanks again. Have a great day.